never give up. I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today is another fantastic day for an interview, and it's a beautiful interview that I'm looking forward to because I've got Crystal Lavender with me. Crystal is a woman who, like me, tried to escape reality, and we both did a pretty good job. Not just this little itty bitty, maybe 6 months here, maybe, I don't know, a year there. No, we went for decades. We wanted to run. And Crystal did 20 years of running. And then finally, enough was enough. She was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And nowadays, she is here to share her story. And I'm incredibly grateful to her for coming onto my show. So, Crystal, welcome to my show.
Thank you very much, Stephan. It's a pleasure to be here.
None of us do wake up one day when we are 6 or 8 years old and say, you know what? I really want to take drugs. Doesn't really work like that. How was your childhood? What was the setup that started your journey?
Well, I started off pretty rough. My mother had a C-section with me, and I technically killed my mom for like the first 3 minutes of my life. My mom was technically dead for the first 3 minutes, and then they thought I was premature. I was born 4.5 weeks early, so I was in the hospital for a long time. And then when I finally got to come home, like my mom did all these tests with me. She thought I had like cognitive disorders or like hand function problems, until finally one day she kept giving me these blocks, and she's like, I need you to stack these blocks. I need you to stack these blocks. And finally I stacked them one on top of the other, put my hands on my hips and said there, and walked out of the room. And she threw all the books away at that point. She was like, oh, okay, she's fine. I'm throwing these books away. But then it started in with the childhood sexual abuse. Like I was abused before I was even making red blood cells. They thought I had leukemia by the time I was 2, and I had already given my first blowjob, excuse my language, before I was even making red blood cells. So my childhood started off with a lot less boundaries than I knew how to incorporate into my adult life. That's for sure. I didn't have the ability to say no. Like I didn't realize how the abuse as a child took away my ability to honestly say no without feeling like I was going to get beat. It was like this, you'd say no more of a question rather than a statement, a no, and then kind of wait to see what sort of repercussions. And it took me a long time to be no and just have it as more of a statement than a question. But my childhood was pretty rough. I grew up in all kinds of different places. I lived all over the place in multiple different states. I did multiple different elementary schools, and we ended up moving to Las Vegas, Nevada, where after my parents got divorced, and I turned into hell on wheels as soon as I was a teenager, no doubt.
What was your mom's relationship with alcohol and drugs? What kind of models did you have there?
My parents actually didn't do, they weren't alcoholics. My dad had a addiction to codeine pills at one point. But other than that, like I wasn't raised with drugs and alcohol. I was raised, like my mom always made sure that my birthdays were wonderful. For the most part, like between my parents, we had a pretty good childhood from what I can remember from growing up with my mom and my dad. There were some pretty traumatic experiences that happened around my childhood sexual abuse. Once it came out, because it was my cousin's, I ended up losing my virginity to my cousin and his friend before I was even in kindergarten. And it came out that was going on they brought me to one of those little rooms where they have you play with the anatomically correct dolls. And then they took my dad away. They thought that there was something going on with my dad. Well, it wasn't my dad that was doing anything, but they still took him away. And my mom had a complete nervous breakdown. And I remember one day I was about about 4 or 5, I was learning how to whistle, and I was supposed to be taking a nap, and I wouldn't take a nap, and my mom just she lost control and like stabbed everything in the house, you know, and that really put a building block of like keeping my mouth shut, you know, because once I tried to say anything about anything, then all this bad stuff started happening, you know, like all of a sudden then my dad's taken away, my mom's losing her cool, you know. It really set a foundation of like, okay, just don't say stuff, you know, don't let them know what's going on, you know, all these bad things happen when you say these things. So I continue to keep my mouth shut about stuff for a very, very long time.
Having said
um
that, obviously, so someone recognized that there was something going on, and were you offered help? And was that help, if it was offered to you, was it helping you?
the help I was offered was through the state agencies, you know. I got put into counseling. They give me counseling, but that really didn't do much. It didn't really stick. The state lost the funding for the counseling that I was supposed to be going to. My dad didn't want to have any sort of charges pressed on my cousin. You know, he was underage at the time too. I mean, he was older than me. He was like 16 and I was like 4, you know. So there was a lot of tension between the families. It caused a lot of tension between my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family. And I believe that my mom did the best that she could with what she had available, you know. I mean, it's a lot different. Like her mom had no, like, when it came out about my mom's sisters, there was no legal stuff that she could do about it during those times, you know.
Mm.
She just packed her stuff and left and did the best that she could. You know, her mom's mom, there was nothing that she could do about it besides pack her stuff and leave, you know. So the times have changed a lot, but I believe my mom did the best that she could with what was available. But it didn't help.
Mm.
I still ended up being a very promiscuous, unruly teenager. I mean, I started doing drugs when I was 13 years old when I moved to Vegas. I mean, I was already a very unhealthy, popular little girl around the neighborhood. There were things that, you know, I was doing that normal little girls weren't doing, you know, but I didn't realize that it wasn't normal until I got older.
Mm.
And then I saw my son, you know, my son was like 9, and I was like, wow, I can't believe some of the things that I had already experienced by the time I was his age. It gave me a really good reflection of what a healthy child was supposed to look like compared to the things that I know that I had already been doing. And then I seek therapy for myself.
Mm.
Once I realized, like, wow, like, you had some serious issues, you had some serious problems with your childhood sexual trauma, and like that's really what that boiled down to, all of the things that I had done, all of the horrible choices that I had made, all of the inability to say no, the promiscuity, the dating older men, it just boiled, like it all tied together to the situations from when I was younger. And so I started seeking therapy about when my son turned 9 to get
But did
help for myself.
Sure. But in the meantime, you were in fight and flight mode. You were in a hell of a lot of pain, and the drugs were a way out to escape your reality. What did the drugs do? What was your first drug that you had? Do you
Um,
remember?
well, we had just moved into a trailer park off of Washington Avenue in Las Vegas in 1994. And I remember I was so excited to finally have my own room again. You know, my 13th birthday came with a lot of new changes. I had my very own room. There was now this phone super glued to my head. And the cute older guy with his own place and own car wanted me, of all people, to come over. So I devised a plan to sneak out of my house. And the very first time I snuck out of my house was the very first time I'd seen it. And from the first time I'd seen it, it came in a brick. And I thought I'd found the love of my life. And we even had the same name. My name is Crystal.
Oh,
And
scheiße.
I always made jokes about how, you know,
Ah,
this love of my life, we shared the same name. And I started doing methamphetamines when I was 13 years old with older men.
yeah.
Because I was kind of groomed from my childhood to oh, well, they think I'm special. What does this older guy with his own place and his own car want this 13-year-old girl to come over for? Like what business did this older man have with this 13-year-old little girl? But I didn't see any problem with it then. I was like, oh, wow, I feel special. I'm important, that I must be doing something right because all the older kids want to hang out with me, and my drug addiction started by hanging out with people that I thought were important, that made me feel important, that's what they were doing. So I fell right into that boat. I was in my first drug rehabilitation center by the time I was 14 years old. And then by the time I was 15, I was living on the streets of Las Vegas. My mom and my mom and my little brother lived right next door to the Stratosphere on Las Vegas Boulevard in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we had a studio bedroom apartment, and me and my mom shared a bed, and my little brother slept on the floor. I remember we had this hooker red shag carpet and like this neon light in the alleyway that always was on, and my next door neighbors were prostitutes, and she used to try to give me these belly sequin shirts, and introduce me to older men. And I ran, I ran. I took off and was homeless by the time I was 15, 16. Not that I didn't have a home. Like my mom always gave me a home, but I didn't want to be there because I couldn't party there. I couldn't do drugs there. There were no cute older guys there, So I put myself in a lot of really dangerous positions, and just with my inability to say no, to not know how to say no. I didn't know how to say no. I let a lot of things happen to me that I didn't want to let happen to me because I figured it was just easier to let it happen than it was to try to fight it, that you wouldn't get hurt. You wouldn't have to deal with the consequences of going to court, of doing all this stuff. You just kept your mouth shut. So I lived like that for a long time. And then I started hitchhiking and hopping trains, and I traveled with the Rainbow Family, which is like this group of gypsies. I traveled with a group of gypsies for years, hitchhiking and hopping trains. And for 2+ decades, I was, from the time I was 13 until I'm 2 years sober now of all substances. Like I had been doing something to alter my mind, to escape my reality, to not face the things that I had let happen to me, to not face the people that I was around, or just stuff that I was allowing.
May I ask, where did the money come from?
What was that?
Where did the money come from to afford your
Well,
meth?
it came from me knowing the right people, supposedly. Like I always just hung out with the people that had it, and I didn't really have to pay so much for it. I mean, I did steal money from my mom. I remember I stole money from my best friend. I used to shoplift, and there was one time that I got picked up on the streets because I would get on the bus at 4 o'clock in the morning on Las Vegas Boulevard, and there would always be people pulling over. I was on my way to school. I was at high school at that time, and there'd be people that pulled over, and I always just thought in my naive mind, like, wow, these people are really nice. And one time I actually got into a car with someone, and he brought me to his house and did what he did with me, because once again, I didn't have the ability to tell him that I wasn't a prostitute, and he dropped me off in front of my school and handed me $20 like I was a prostitute, and bought me a pack of cigarettes and drove away. And I never told anyone. I just went about my day, went to school, but I wasn't actually selling my body during those times. Not consciously, I'm sure that I was what you would call a bag hoe. Like I would just hang out with the people, as my boyfriends would be the dealer, or my best friend would be the dealer, or I knew like 6 people that actually made it. So finding it and getting it wasn't a problem. I didn't know at that time that I was using my body for that. It wasn't a conscious choice of like, oh yeah, if I sleep with this guy, he's going to give me drugs. But that's pretty much what I was doing.
Wow. Thank you for your honesty, for your transparency. And it is interesting how you were able to detach yourself from all those things. I mean, did you find love during that time?
Not anything real, that's for sure. I mean, I didn't love myself, so there's no way that I could find actual love because I
Beautiful.
had no idea of what loving myself even encompassed. So,
Wow. Okay.
I mean, my mother loved me. My mother never ever, she was always, always trying to get me to come home. I couldn't imagine being my mom, like having to deal with the things that I was doing as a parent now. Like it breaks my heart for her, some of the things that like she would have to deal with. I would run away for 3-4 months at a time. I was constantly ditching school. Like she had no idea where I was. Like I could imagine it was terrible for her. But she never gave up on me. She never gave up on me. She never threw me away. She always just, I love you. I wish you would not do these things. What can I do to help you not do these things?
Wow.
I know she carries a lot of guilt. There's a lot of guilt that she carries for, some of the things that happened when I was a child. She carries that heavy in her heart. And I couldn't imagine being my mom. Like she's super proud of me now. Like she's very thankful that, I've gone the path that I've gone, and I'm able to tell my story and to try to help as many people as I humanly possibly can, to know that they're not alone, to know that there is a way out, to help them learn to love themselves, to show that there is another option, even after 20 years of thinking there wasn't.
What led to the change? What was there one moment, or was there a series of moments that led you to decide actually enough is enough? And then what did you actually do to get off the drugs?
Well, there was a series of divine intervention for sure. Um, I was I was over it. I had been clean for a while, like I had been drinking. Once I found out I was pregnant, I had stopped doing drugs, but then that gave me an excuse to drink. Like, okay, well, at least I'm not smoking meth anymore. Like I can drink a half gallon of Kentucky Deluxe, no big deal, because I'm not smoking meth. So from the time my son was born till about 2 years ago, no, about 6 years ago, I relapsed. Like I had a very traumatic experience and I was super in victim mode. Like I went straight victim. Like I'd never been that depressed, that angry with God, that just so miserable spiritually, physically, mentally. And then I relapsed and I hit a pipe one time for the next 5 years. And my house instantly turned into a trap house. Like I used to have like a homeless shelter for punk rock kids. Like there was always people at my house, and it just got to the point where the people that were at my house were, I would find needles behind my um, washroom. I had to have cameras on my cameras. I went from not having a door on my bedroom at all to my door continuously being locked. I would fall asleep in my car because it was the only place that I felt safe. Um, it I was starving, like I had no money, and the money that I did have all went to things that it shouldn't have been. And the people that I had around me were just perpetuating that situation. And I finally took a look at my life. I realized that I had a hole in my drum. There were no plants alive anymore, that my house was just completely wasn't mine. I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore. And I had to start implementing, no, like something's got to change. Something's got to change. So the first thing that I had to do was evict my best friend out of my backyard. I had my best friend had lived in my backyard for about 6 years in this camper trailer. And that was one of my very first steps of like, you have to love yourself. And a lot of times, like, we don't understand that learning to love ourselves means saying no to people that you love. You know, it means saying no, that no, you can't come live with me. You can't stay here. Like, I can't let this happen because I love myself, because I was constantly a people pleaser. Hey, Crystal, do you want to go do this? Yeah, sure, I'm your girl. Hey, Crystal, do you want to go do that? Yeah, sure, I'm your girl. Like I was constantly the yes person. So learning to say no and learning to stand up for myself and to really listen to what my inner soul was telling me. My inner child was like screaming at me, like, no, please don't do this. Please don't let them live here. You know, they're hurting us. And I was ignoring her. So it took a lot of really like small steps at first of learning how to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, hey, Crystal, do you want to go and, you know, run this pound of meth over to here, you know, for nothing? And I'd be like, no, like I can't, I have too much to lose. I have my son to lose. I have myself to lose. There was too much to lose, you know? And it really took a long time for me to learn how to stick up for myself without it being a question. Like I was saying in the beginning, you know, they'd be like, hey, Crystal, it was like my favorite word. Everything was no. I felt like a toddler once I learned how to say it. Hey, Crystal, do you want a nope? Hey, do you want a nope? You know?
Excellent. That is the
And
power of saying no, and to actually find your inner voice. And of course, the pendulum swings the other way. Of course. So now, as you said in your new favorite word, you say no until your lips bleed. But sometimes you have to do that, and sometimes you have to be cruel to others, quotation marks, whilst in reality you're protecting yourself, and you're doing the first time that, because it is a big trap. You surround yourself with those people that do exactly the same thing as you do. So therefore, you feel, look, everyone is doing it, so nothing is wrong with me. And that is again and again and again the same thing. It doesn't matter if it is alcohol, if it is drugs, if it is promiscuity, sex addiction, etc. You have your own tribe, and then when you suddenly stand back and actually say, "Look, guys, I actually don't want to drink," a world breaks down for them. How were you able to say no when there was for sure some antagonism from so-called friends?
it was really difficult. Like they try to shame you, they try to guilt you, they try to, you know, I mean, half the reason why we're people pleasers in the first place is because we are afraid that if we say no, that we to something we really don't want to do, that someone's going to leave us or abandon us or, you know, treat us poorly. So I had to really look at my accountability to myself. You know, I had to take a very, very honest look at what I truly wanted and what I truly didn't want, and who I truly wanted to be in my life and who I truly did not want to be in my life. You know, I was very much a people pleaser, you know, and that was part of my grooming as a child, was to be a people pleaser, to just, you know, was constantly looking for that, the reassurance, that little tidbit of love. That's why we end up falling in love, like, or we, you know, like some guy will call us at 2 o'clock in the morning to come and do their laundry, and we're like, yeah, sure, I'll be right there, you know, and then we go and do this, and then we expect this person to love us more and to love us more because we're giving, and then they don't. And then we're so confused on why they don't love us, and it's because we don't love ourselves. Because any self-respecting woman is not going to go do someone's laundry at 2 o'clock in the morning just because some guy calls them, you know. So I had to really take accountability for not only how I was a people pleaser, but how I was also an enabler. You know, they say that you can tell if you're enabling an addict or not enabling an addict by if they're happy with you or not. You know, and once I started taking control of my life, there were a lot of people that were very upset with me because I was no longer enabling them to, you know, have a free place to stay, to have free
Beautiful.
drugs that they could do whatever, to manipulate. Like it took a lot of very, very honest self-reflection and accountability to really, really delve into what it was that my soul really wanted, and who was actually really there for me and who really wasn't. And once it became aware that these people they didn't love me, you know, and they didn't love me because I didn't love me, then I really focused on doing everything that I could to learn what that meant,
Wow.
to give my inner child the voice that she never had, you know. When I
Beautiful.
thought about my inner child running up to me and was like, hey, all bright-eyed, and what did we do with our life, you know, it broke my heart having to tell her just this and this horrible, just some sort of war story after war story after war story with no positive ending. I was like, no, I have to change that. I have to change that not only for me, I have to change that for my son. I have to change that for my mom, my mom's mom, for anybody that out there that never had the opportunity to do it. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I tell the story that I tell. That's why I'm so vulnerable and open and honest about anything that anybody wants to talk with me about. Because once you own everything that you have ever done, anything that you have ever been, all of the deceitful stuff, like, yeah, okay, I did that. There's nothing that anybody can say to you that takes that power away from you. They can't diminish my shine by something that I've done, because I own it. There's nothing that I have hidden in my closets, because I own it. There's nothing that anybody can use against me, because I own it. And once you own everything that you have ever done, and you have no secrets, there's this, that's like true wealth. It's something that I will go to my grave with, that nobody can ever take from me.
Oh, that's beautiful. True wealth. Oh, that is so encompassing. And it's so bizarre for maybe people who have not been in a situation like you. And it doesn't matter what has led to those situations and what has led to the decisions that we make, which we are not proud of later. You still have to own it. You don't have to live in the past. You don't have to be that victim. On the contrary, if you stay in that victim role, it is so easy to continue to behave in a certain way. But when you start owning things and when you start actually taking care of things, that will suddenly change the perspective. You're no longer a victim. You have turned into a survivor. And
I-
then down the line, there are people like you.
Surviving soldier of the Most High.
There are people like you now who have gone even one step further, because they are not just survivors, they are thrivers. Because you are growing. You're growing with every interview you do. You took you took all this energy and actually wrote a book about your story. Now that takes guts, that takes determination, that takes so many beautiful uh, how do you call them, traits within you, because these are all traits that you don't have or that don't shine when you are in your active addiction. And there is you're basically just floating on a sea of shit, when you're in active addiction. And here you are actually reflecting on what had happened to you, dealing with that, writing it down, giving it words. Wow. Was that painful? Was it helpful? How was that writing process for you to actually put it all in words?
There were parts of it that were kind of painful, to figure out how to write them, to express exactly what was going on, in a way that was still democratic, per se, to where it wasn't just, bashing on someone, or
Yeah.
like it took a lot of thought process, but it was very liberating. I wrote my book and I published it for my 41st birthday, and I dedicated it to my inner child.
Beautiful.
And I told her that I hear you, I see you, I love you, and I do it for anyone out there that never had the chance, all the people out there that have died with some story, without ever telling them, without ever speaking to anyone about what happened to them as a child, for all the people that died of overdose, that never had a chance to tell their story of redemption, of triumph. I had to learn how to transmute that energy. Like, I really believe that I am, a starseed. Once I learned about the whole starseed mission and about being a volunteer on the planet to help uplift the consciousness of humanity, it was like all of it just clicked into place. I owned a tattoo shop at one point, and it was called Sin Eaters. And a sin eater, back in the day, was the rich people in town would pay a degenerate in beer and bread to eat the sins of a deceased person so that they could get into heaven. And once I learned about a starseed, I was like, wow, that's pretty much what we are in a living, like breathing human body. Is we're here to eat the sins of the planet, to transmute it into light energy.
Oh.
And I very much associate myself with being a starseed, with a light worker. And once I gave myself that title, that mission, it made it all worth it, to be here, to help transmute that energy, to help others learn how to transmute that energy. It's like even if there's no such thing as a star seed, the fact that I believe it and that I know that I'm here for a purpose, on purpose, with purpose, like it changed my whole mentality from victim to soldier. Like I became no longer a victim.
How beautiful is that? And it does not matter what construct we put around our new mission. Some people, they believe in Jesus Christ. Other people believe in Allah. Other people believe in nothing. But we all know that there is something bigger out there than us. And I think it's that conviction that actually we are part of a movement. We make sense out of our trauma, and we change it to actually drive us to do something good. And that's the beautiful thing. However you
Well, no
call
matter
it.
what, like if you believe that you're a victim, or you believe that you're a soldier, it's right. Whatever it is that you believe.
Correct. And I rather choose to have the active role of now actually going out there. Damn, I get goosebumps just thinking of it, because that's how powerful these emotions are. You're really sort of thinking, okay, no, fuck that. The past was the past. The past does not equal the future. On the contrary, the past is often completely opposite to where I want to go now. And that's beautiful.
I believe that we live in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. Like we are living in the present moment of our past thoughts while we're creating our future in the now. And that's why the now is the most important. Exactly. Is because if you think about what you were thinking about last year, and then you think of where you're sitting now, you're probably living in the thoughts that you had last year in the present moment. So in the now, you're creating your future. Yeah. So in a year from now, what you're thinking at this moment is going to be where you're at in your future. And that's where the law of attraction really came in for me. Learning the power of my mind, learning, once I found recovered on purpose. Like it changed my life. Like the universe came in and put this recovered on purpose in front of me, just as I was learning about the law of attraction, and just as I was learning about this whole starseed mission. Then Adam Vi Begotten came into my inbox, and I learned about recovered on purpose. And from that point on, I was like, man, I want to say that and mean it. I just wanted to say it and mean it. And I was learning about the power of manifestation. And I was like, okay, well, what if I just keep telling myself I am recovered on purpose? And even as I was smoking, in active addiction, I would tell other people, I would tell myself, I am recovered on purpose. I am recovered on purpose. And the more I told myself that, I am recovered on purpose. I told myself, I don't smoke cigarettes when I was smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes as I'm smoking. And it felt really weird to try to trick your brain into thinking that, oh yeah, you don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes. The conversations that you have in your mind daily, like the universe doesn't have any other choice but to say that is correct. Here is some more of whatever it is that you believe. I believe Dr. Joe Dispenza, and like I've listened to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and they talk about how everybody wants to create a different personality, a different reality by being the same personality, and it doesn't work like that. You have to actually change your inside person. If you're constantly like, oh, all I am is a victim, all I am is a victim, all I am is a victim, then the universe says that is correct. Here's some more, all I am is a victim. If you say, oh, I've got to save some money, I don't have enough money, the universe says, that is correct. Here's some more, I got to save some more money. You don't have enough money. But if you say, I am successful, I am successful, I am successful, the universe has no choice but to say, here you go, here's some more, I am successful. And if you don't like what the here's some more of whatever it is that you're thinking, then change the way that you're thinking. Like, we have the power. Only we have that power. Nobody else can do it for us. But we have the power to change our own internal dialect until we start seeing the results of it. And once you start seeing the results of it, then it becomes easier and easier. It's just like a muscle memory. It doesn't happen overnight. I didn't all of a sudden wake up and like no longer did I do drugs anymore. It was a slow, gradual process, but then it eventually happened. I no longer do drugs anymore. That's just like being, completely obese and eating a salad and thinking that you're going to wake up skinny. You can't just eat one salad and do 10 sit-ups one day and wake up and be like, okay, why am I not skinny? Like we expect these immediate results with immediate gratification. And that's kind of what drugs do for us, is that gives us this immediate, immediate escape, immediate gratification.
Yeah.
But it does take some work, but with the work comes a reward. It's just like practice, like muscle memory. Your brain is a giant muscle. So training it to think something different doesn't just happen overnight. I mean, we are only human, so I mean, I have bad days, but I always tell myself, you can't have a bad day with a good attitude. And if you really, really start like becoming aware of the fact that you are in control of your emotions, like we always say, oh, this person made me angry. No, you're allowing yourself to be angry because of an outside situation that's happening to you. You are in control of how you feel. No matter what situation is going on, you have a choice to feel however you want to feel, to react however you want to react. And becoming aware, like self-aware of that ability to, so what, I get a flat tire on the side of the road, we always say, oh yeah, life works out for me, like it's always working in my favor, except for when things go seemingly wrong. And then all of a sudden God hates us, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, everybody's out to get me, the universe is against me, but why can't we say, okay, everything works out in my favor, even when it's seemingly something that we don't understand, Like, I got fired from a job one time, and I kept the last thing, excuse me, the last thing I said on the phone with this person, it was supposedly a scammer. I just got my first paycheck job in like 16 years, and I was super excited to have it. And this guy called, and it was like a phone scam person, and I was like, man, if you really are a phone scammer, like, I'm going to lose my job, and the last thing I said to him was, everything always works out for me, even if I don't think it is, like it, and my boss walked in to fire me. Right. And that place no longer even exists anymore. The universe always sees what we don't, like it sees the bigger picture. It sees the whole city, the whole town, the whole world, the whole universe. Like, we only see this itty bitty teeny parts of our reality, but God, universe, Allah, like, I don't care what you want to call it. I love them all. I love them all. Like, all I know is I know nothing. So for me to say that, no, this is the one, this is correct, is just seems so like absurd to me. So I just love them all, Like, I love whatever source is. I don't care if you call it Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, whatever God is for you, for your perception. Like, I love them all. And we have a tendency to think that, oh, when these bad things happen, like, oh, God's an idiot, like, the universe is not an idiot, it's not an idiot. It sees things, it hears conversations. If somebody if the universe is trying to kick a tower over in your life, and you keep fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, like, it's so much harder to deal with when the universe has to come and crash that tower down than if you just listen to what the universe is saying and then do it yourself,
Which is hard, and it takes practice. So I think that is the key to understanding that you can't just say, oh, I'm such a positive person, I want to now be positive and for a whole day, and therefore everything will be beautiful. It doesn't work like that. That's for sure.
No, because life is still life, for sure.
Correct.
Things still happen. People, you have no control over anybody else outside of you, but you have control over you. you know? And it's surprising how much our body remembers. Like there was one time that I sat with a whole mouthful of pills, like wanting to die, like literally on a suicide attempt, and I'm stuffing all these pills in my mouth and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what? Why are you doing this? Like I looked around and was like, there is nothing wrong in my life at all. There was nothing wrong. I had my son's good. I wasn't doing drugs. I was totally, clean. Like I'd gotten rid of all the bad people in my life. And I'm still sitting there with this mouthful of pills. And then I remembered it was an anniversary of something that traumatic that had happened to me.
Huh.
And my whole aura remembered that traumatic experience, even though I wasn't living it in that moment.
Sure.
I had to physically tell myself there is nothing wrong with you, because my whole inner being remembered it. Like our ego is only a record of the past, and it only helps us to try to keep us safe from things that we might have experienced before. And like it has no future determination of things that we've never been through before. It only is a record of the things that we've experienced. So I had to retrain. Like I chose Valentine's Day as my sobriety date because I had always had really bad things happen to me on Valentine's Day. And because I believed that and because I said it, then I always continuously just repeated that cycle. So I chose Valentine's Day as my sobriety date to give my body a new memory, my muscle, my brain a new memory. Like, no, this is a good day. You will have good experiences from this day. Like I had to take control over all of the past trauma that had happened to me and reprogram myself, you know? So now it's all like, it's self-love. That's all for me, and anytime that I catch myself in some sort of extreme depression out of nowhere, then I sit there and I think, okay, what happened in my life that my body is remembering, and I have to tell myself, no, you're okay. There's nothing bad going on in your life right now. Just because it happened in the past doesn't mean that it's happening in the present. I mean, because I heard this seminar one time where this Buddhist monk was talking, and this is kind of what they do with social media and TV and our everything. In 1 minute, I can ask you a question. What was the last wedding you went to? And then you start thinking about the wedding. Was the bride's dress pretty? How was the food? Your body goes back into this memory. Like, how is the chair that you're sitting on? Is it comfortable? Is it hard? Do you wish that it could recline, or does it rock? You know what I mean? You can take someone and physically in their mind put them in different situations just from their couch, all within a 3-minute period, by what they're saying. And that's how like your body reacts to these things. You when you think about something that bad happened to you, your body automatically feels the same way that it felt when it was going on. Your body doesn't know that it's not happening, so you still have that same fight or flight reflex from as it was happening. And that's how anxiety works. That's how depression works. We work ourselves up into this mental like mentally reminding ourselves, and then our body reacts to it, even though there's absolutely nothing going on outside of us. Like we have to consciously reprogram ourselves. Like, no, there's nothing wrong. I am in my house right now, that I'm not in that experience. You have to like reprogram your body. And the more that you tell yourself that you are safe, the more the universe has no other choice but to say you are safe. The more you tell yourself that you are sober, the universe has no other choice but to deliver to you the proof that you are.
Beautiful. And there might be people out there who are really thinking, oh, what a mumbo jumbo, what a crap that is. I would have been probably quite skeptical myself in the past. Having said that, when you start working on your sobriety, when you start working on dealing with the past in such a way that you move away from the victimhood, you will come to very similar conclusions. You choose a set of words to describe that gel with some people and not with others. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with them. I think what underlies all of our attempts is that we are actually coming up with something, or we are finding something that helps us to make sense out of our suffering and finally make sense out of it and come to terms with it. Then we can move on. We can think of the positive. We can learn from the darkness. And I think, I mean, if you look at extreme examples, Viktor Frankl, as a concentration camp survivor, wrote the most profound words afterwards. And there are many other people who have gone through absolutely hell and back, including most of the 380 or so guests I've had on this program. It is it is crazy to think what has happened to people over time, and yet we are coming out the other end, and we want to make this world a better place. That's, Crystal, why you have written your book. That's why am here and doing this show. We want to make this world a better place, and we have the power to do it because we have figured out ways how to deal with the not so nice things in our lives. We're not always successful. There will be times when I've got a pity party and I just want to lie there and just cry. Um, and that's okay. That's okay for half a day or a day. That's okay. And then let's move on because there is a life to live. And uh, yeah, but it takes practice, and it takes you guys to take action. And may I just say, all of you out there who are listening here or watching, you have already taken action. Okay, you might not know it, but you've actually chosen to listen to this podcast or watch this YouTube video. Congratulations. So you took action there. You've listened so far, nearly an hour into the game, and you're still with it. And well, more importantly, Crystal has placed seeds into your mind that are now just waiting to actually germinate and start becoming these beautiful uh, beings in their own right. It's gorgeous. So, guys, there is a life waiting out there for you, and whatever the past was, the past does not equal the future. Crystal is proving it. I'm proving it. There's so many people out there. So if you actually surround yourself with people who have been in your shoes and now living a very different life, compared with surrounding yourself with the people that maybe are there at the moment, maybe are not so beneficial, not so helpful, maybe holding you back. Just think, might that be the next action step you want to take? And you don't need to be brutal and completely get rid of them unless they are really toxic. But you can just choose to just take little baby steps, okay? And little baby steps, but in the right direction. Learn to say no. I think this was the key thing for you, Crystal. And there's so many little things that you so beautifully said during this interview. So, guys, it is possible. Crystal is the living proof. So, what holds you back? Crystal, if people gel with you and want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook. That is my real name, Crystal Lavender. You can get a free download of my book on crystal-lavender.com. You can find me on YouTube, which is Nacho Mama. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me all over the place, but I am also a recovery coach and a recovery speaker through Recovered on Purpose. You can find me on recoveredonpurpose.com, which is also on Facebook. You could probably find me in every single soul that you look at. Um,
I love
you
it.
can find me in yourself.
That's
You
true.
can find me in your neighbor.
Which is beautiful, but maybe you get a little bit lost in the eyes of your neighbor. So maybe rather look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast, because in the show notes you've got all of her links. So what have you got to lose? Why not check her out? Why not check out her beautiful book? And whilst you're there, maybe read the book and maybe give her some feedback. Because as
I wrote
authors,
my book all on my phone too.
oh wow,
All on my
there you
phone.
go. There you go.
So for those of you that think that you can't write a book because you don't have this or you don't have that, we literally have all of the tools and the resources in our pocket all the time. And I did
Excellent.
it all completely from my phone. So you
Excellent.
can too. And I always look at
Wow.
life like a puzzle. Like we always have these ugly pieces that we want to just disclose, like we want to discard, but if we discard that ugly piece, then we will have this missing piece of the whole puzzle. Like, have you ever seen a whole puzzle that's just missing this one piece? It might look ugly and distorted all by itself, but when you put the whole picture together, it makes a beautiful picture. So don't throw parts of your story out, or don't throw pieces of you out because you think that they're ugly, because they are all part of that beautiful puzzle that is you.
Wow. Wow. Okay, now that's a cool closing statement. I've never thought about that. I love it. I love it. I love it. And yes, there are many ugly puzzle pieces in me, but it
Yeah,
still makes
disfigured. They don't look like they fit anywhere. They're funky looking, but without those puzzle pieces, you would not have the beautiful picture that is you.
beautiful. Crystal, thank you so much for being on my show. You made me think. You made me reflect, and that is a really good thing. You changed me. You made me grow, and this is beautiful. For that, I'm saying from the deepest inner bit of my heart, thank you so much for being part of my movement of proving to other people that the past does not equal the future.
Well, I appreciate everything that you do. Like I've listened to your podcasts. Like
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate what you are doing, not only for yourself, but for everyone else out there. I mean, everybody's story is powerful because just like words, like you say the word taco, and my taco is completely different than your taco. And no matter how many ways you describe it, your taco will always be your taco and mine will always be mine. And all we can do is relate with each other. We'll never
Yeah,
really understand. But if there are more people out there that are telling their
yeah,
stories than that one person that can relate to the words that this one person is saying, they might be able to express it in only a way that they can, to plant those seeds, to water that garden. So I
exactly.
appreciate very much what you are doing for the world
Mm,
with your stories and with your podcasts and getting people on there, because you never know who's listening. It might just be the one person that can explain it in a way that someone needs to hear it. So I
exactly.
really appreciate you having me on here.
Ah, brilliant. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with passion. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.